He wanted me to go on this last time, but he said he didn't. He says one day you told me a chas, and then you told me then you told me this. You always have a teretz. Okay, so we are up to the Ayin Chesed Aleph. Yesterday we learned about people backing out of sales and down payments on properties. We learned that if someone doesn't pay in full, depending on whether or not the seller is pressing for the money, that would indicate as to whether or not it would be a mekach. Okay. Hayoim shloisha v'esrim yoim shehem shloisha shavuos shnei yom loimer. Okay. I used to say it in the morning to remind Oilam, but after the first day I announced Oimer, David Zolti corrected me. They made a mistake. So now I say it to make sure that I got it right. Zogt Gemara Pshita. It's poshut that boil is vuna b'meya v'lo yashkach. If you wanted to buy a piece of property and you needed 100 zuz, so you needed 100 zuz because you wanted to buy something. So in order to get that meya zuz, you wanted to sell a property for meya zuz, but v'lo yashkach, you weren't able to find anybody that would be willing to purchase a small property that you had for sale for meya zuz. So because of that, you were forced to sell a larger piece of property. The Zavan to Messiah. So you didn't want to sell Messiah. You really didn't want to, but you were desperate for the money. And the Moicher, who sold this 200 zuz property, didn't want to sell, is harassing the purchaser for payment in full. Loikani, that won't be kind. Because for sure, why did he want? You might say you only needed 100, he didn't need 200. So why is he pushing? Well, Rashi says because he wants to buy quickly another property worth 100, so that he could at least maintain what he has. So that's Pasha. It's not kind because he's not happy that he didn't get paid in full. But what if he tried to sell for 100 and he couldn't find? But Vitarach, if he would have called Frank Leo, have a mashkach, he would have been able to find a buyer for his property. He didn't call Frank Leo, so therefore he was forced to sell the Zovim Messiah. So now he wasn't so forced. He could have gotten the 100 zuz property sold, but he didn't want to bother. So he took the easy route and he sold the larger property. And what do we say? Do we say it's Kemoicher Sadeh with Pnei Rosh Adami? And therefore, if he's Ma'ayel B'Nofak Azusa, it doesn't matter. It's still not a Mekach Tos. He still wants to sell because he wasn't really forced to do the sale. He could have found a way to sell a smaller piece of property. Or do you say no? He regrets the sale until Mekach Tos, and for that the Gemara answers with take. Gewaltig. Socher as a chamar as a kadar. You hired someone to transport something for you, and it's an item, it's an issue that's time sensitive. It's got to be done right now. Then you can pay a lot more money than what the going rate is, and then charge it back to them. Or you could fool them by promising them a lot of money and then not paying it. How much can you possibly charge or pay? How much can you possibly pay for this melacha and charge it back to them? Amar Nachman ad kedei schora. The only thing you can really enforce on them is what you're going to pay them. So yeah, let's say they already worked part of the day and they walked off. You can pay a premium up to what you would have otherwise had to pay them, and then you don't pay them because more than that, you don't have anything on them. Eisei Rav Nachman didn't we learn a brayso that it said that arboim v'chamishim zuz, which is way more than the little bit that you owe them. You know when you could pay so much more and being able to charge it back to the people who walked off on the job? That's if they brought out all their tools and all their equipment. So you could seize their tools and equipment and you could sell them and you can use all that money to get the job finished. So it's much. It's not a shayla of what I can take you to the Torah for. Practically speaking, what am I going to be able to get you to pay? So what I owe you for your work, there for sure I can hold that back. But I can even liquidate any of the tools that you brought to the job site in order to get the job finished. Okay, sagt der Heilige Mishnah weiter. Hasoicher es a chamor. Someone rented a chamor. Now we're no longer talking about employee-employee relations. We're talking now about the responsibility of somebody who rents something. Hasoicher es a chamor loy lichai bahar. And the idea was he was going to use this animal to walk in the mountains. And he didn't do what he was supposed to do it. Rather, he took it into a valley. Now the air is different in the valley than it is in the mountain. On the mountains, clean, fresh air, but it's high up. Maybe the air is thinner, maybe it's harder to get up there. The bika is down at the bottom. It's hotter, it's damper, it's muggier. Or bebika v'alicha bahar, or the opposite. Zokt Rashi, bebika v'alicha bahar b'roishar, at the top of the mountain. V'alfa pisha derech cholak v'yosher. Even if it's not a bad terrain, it's a pretty good path going up through the mountain, you'll still be chai. Okay? Afilu zu eser milim v'zu eser milim. Even though the distance that you traveled with the animal was the same in the bika as it would have been in the har, or vice versa, umeis, and the animal dies, chayiv. So here it's mashma, it's chayiv no matter what. But then the Mishnah has another case similar, and it gives a lot more detail. If it slipped, then it's potter. Why? Because where is an animal most likely to slip? In the har. You took it to the bika, where it's even less likely to slip. Therefore, you're potter, because what you did was definitely not negligence. The animal was, you took an animal to a place where it's less likely to slip. What if in the bika it overheated and died because of that? Because the air in the bika is much thicker and muggier. Chayiv, there you're chayiv, because you were supposed to take it to a place where the air was good, and you took it to a place where the air was bad. So it's funny, because in the Reisha, the Mishnah makes no such distinction as to why it died. You took it to the wrong place, and it dies, you're chayiv. Now, the Mishnah is making a distinction in why it died. Or let's look at the other way around. You were supposed to take it into the bika, and you took it into the har. Im hechlika chayiv. If it slipped, you're chayiv, because you took it to a place where it's much more likely to slip. But if overheated, which is less likely to happen on the mountain, potter. However, in makmas amayla, if because the animal had to climb up the mountain, it got exhausted and then overheated, then chayiv, because once again you caused that to happen. Hasoicher is a chamor ve'vrika. What ve'vrika is, we'll see in the Gemara, but it means some type of partial blindness. Oishenasis anagria, or it was seized by the king, and we're going to learn soon that the way anagria worked was you could be walking along with your donkey, and the king's people come and say, "We are taking your donkey now." So you had to unload your donkey, give them a donkey, and you had to schlep your own stuff, and you would normally walk along with them till they found the next victim, and then they gave you your donkey back, and they took the next guy's donkey. You could tell the Bailam, it's not considered like your pasha, it's not considered like your chayiv. This is you tell the Bailam, here's your animal. Mesa nishbra, what if the animal died machmas and oinis due to no fault of the seicher? Chayiv lamad lechamor. There, the Bailam, in order to honor the contract that he's providing an animal under schiris, would actually have to get another animal to finish the contract with. It's like if you rent a car and your car dies, the transmission fails, the car company is going to give you a new car for the remainder of the rental.
Is that true?
I'm sorry? Yeah. So let's see the Rashi again. So Rashi starts off by telling us that regardless, you're chayiv. Then Rashi says, "B'gemara mafarish ma'ishna reisha hacha delay maflik ben huchelka lahuchama." Why in the Reisha does the Mishnah say across the board you went to the wrong place, you'll be chayiv? Yet in the Seifa, maflik it makes a difference as to what happened. So that's what the Gemara is going to explain. Okay, Gavaltik. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Let's just see the Anagria, which Rashi's on the Anagria. Anagria means to Natula by the Melech, Oimer loy masker l'soicha, Rachel Holofanecha, Talena Kamoishahi, Smuya Veselech. Take it, it's blind now, take it, and it's yours. Sha'af Masl Chagorim Kamoi Masli. It's not just my muzzle, the soicha's muzzle, that causes to happen, it's the owner's muzzle as well. V'tarach v'asher Yosy b'drachim, and you'll have to deal with an animal that can't see well. We both lose. You had bad muzzle that the animal got seized or injured. Mesa nishbra shemafsid kol schar, then chayiv hamasker limkar ha'or b'nevela l'klovim. The masker will have to liquidate whatever is remaining from this dead animal. Ulahoisif mois ulahamid lechamar, and come up with more money to find the chamar, to replace the chamar, to fulfill his rental contract. Or yisker le'achar b'demenevela, or he could rent the chamar temporarily, but he has to get a hold of the chamar to give the soicher. Sharei chamar zeh shibud loy. There's a shibud on this chamar, right, to the soicher because he rented it. Oh, actually, sorry, or he's got to pay back, give him back his money that he rented it with. The loy kamaflik. Why is it in the Reisha? If someone deviated, no matter what, he's chayiv. Because Reisha is shemesa machmas avir. You know what was the cause of death? The cause of the death was the air, as Rashi says. Machmas avir loy huchlaka v'loy huchma. It didn't overheat. It didn't slip. Umeisa masa, but it died by itself because it didn't have good air. Hoyel v'shinaba, since you took the animal where it wasn't supposed to go, yochal loimer loy, the owner of the animal could tell the soicher, loy meisa zu elamach masavir. It died because of the air that was not compatible with my animal. Loy haisheli muda ligadel ba'avir har v'kosherlo. When I said take it to the bika, that's because I know my animal wouldn't be able to survive off the thin air of the mountaintop. Or on the other hand, if he was supposed to go to the har and he went to the bika, so that's why it doesn't matter how, if it died machmas avir, it doesn't matter anything. The fact that you took it to a place where the air wasn't what was supposed to be fed, so to speak, makes you chayiv. Darminan avira, the har katla, or varminan avira, the bika katla. The seifa is speaking where it died because it slipped or it overheated. So there's a specific reason why it died. So then you look and see if the fact that you took it to the wrong place was an aggravating factor in what happened. But in either case, if it was the avri that killed it, there's no question about it that where you took it was the aggravating factor. It died because of exhaustion. Zok Rashi, what does that mean? Ayefus v'yigia mimasa, exhaustion from its load. Haylicha bahar, if he took it in the har, yachaloimerloi, the owner could tell the soicher, ayefus hamala, shall also leroy shahar, the added exhaustion that you put my animal through by dragging it to the top of the mountain, hoyala matchila, that's what led to the exhaustion. In other words, it might not have died on the way up. It might have died much later, but that contributed to the exhaustion of the animal that it eventually got exhausted under the load. That's why later on it became too exhausted and it collapsed. Even if it was walking on a straight, easy path, getting it up there, that extra work before the straight path contributed to the exhaustion of the animal. And therefore, the yagatach maso mesa. And therefore it was exhausted when you loaded it up and it died. On the other hand, if it was supposed to go to the har and you took it to the bika, even though we didn't see the animal sweating, and it's not a very, very hot day where we would say we could see it overheated, still, yesh loymar, had you taken the animal where I told you, in the har, there it's much more breezy. The the breezy air of the mountain would have given the animal more strength that it would not have suffered this exhaustion. The bika loy shalit ba'aver. We know in the bika it's not very breezy. The air is more muggy. And that caused the animal to be a little bit weaker. And then when you loaded it up, the combination of the fact that you took it to a place where it's not, which is going to exhaust it just by walking through there, and then you load it up, that killed it. Rabbi Amar, the case was where a snake bit it. So there, it's for sure due to the fact that you took it to the wrong place. Because had you not taken it to where it wasn't supposed to be, the snake was in the mountain. The snake wasn't in the bika. Had you took it in the bika, it wouldn't have got bitten by the snake.
Doesn't mean that the snake is there always.
No, because a snake can just as easily be in the bika as it could be in the har. Going according to Reb Meir, the Omar Halamayvir al das balabais nikra gazan. The Reisha is going according to Reb Meir, meaning even if what you did up until now, we're giving reasons why what you did contributed to the fact that the animal died. Reb Meir holds no. What you did had zero contribution to why the animal died. But the fact is, you were maver al das balabais. Once you're maver al das balabais, Dr. Gemara turning over on top of the base, nikra gazan, you're a gazan. Once you're a gazan, you're chayav anointin. Nikra gazan, Dr. Rashi, the kamal libeshusei lehischayiv b'chalointzeh b'sefer derabbanan. So the race of the Mishnah is going according to Reb Meir. No matter what, no matter when, no matter why, if you deviated from what the contract says and you took it to the wrong place, you're a gazlan and you're mechuyev anointin. So to my high Reb Meir, where did we see Reb Meir Shita that Kol HaMeshana Midas Balabais Nikra Gazlan? Ilema Reb Meir Detzeva. If it's Reb Meir who had an opinion on the dyer who dyed something the wrong color, the Tanan we learned. You wanted to hire somebody to dye your baguette red, or the opposite, what does Reb Meir paskin? Reb Meir Omer Noisin Loy Demeit Simri. Reb Meir holds all the merchant has to do, or the dyer has to do, is give the owner back the value of the tzemer, and he keeps the tzemer. He's like koinit b'shinoi. Zokt Rashi, noisin loy demeit tzemer bedamim in cash. Tzemer lava nimka b'shuk. In other words, he was given white tzemer to dye. That's what he pays for. The kanya big zeloi l'shalom k'shasak zela. We say that this person who deviated from what the balabais wanted and dyed it the wrong color is like a goblin. He's kind it, he pays for it at the Shasak Zela. And it's this, so maybe that's the Reb Meir. And Rabbi Yehuda, we had, our Mishnah says like Rabbi Yehuda, in Mashvach Yasser ala Yitzia, Noishan Lois HaYitzia, in my Yitzia, Yisser ala Shvach, Noishan Lois HaShvach, right? That was the Yad Mishan ala Tachtoina. We quoted him in our Mishnah earlier. But for the Gemara, that Reb Meir won't help us over here. Why? Mimai. Dil Mashani Osam, the Kanya B'Shinu Ma'isa. There, he was Kanyit because he actually changed it from white wool to red wool. There, it creates a kinyan where it belongs to him. But who said, just because you take an animal to a place where it wasn't supposed to go, who said there he'll be Kanyit? To be Mechuyev anointed. As Rashi says, B'Shinoi. So it was white wool, he made it into red or black. By taking it to the wrong place, that doesn't change it in any way. So that could not be the Reb Meir that we're relying on to help us with Pshat in our mission. Reb Meir, the Mageves Purim. It must be the Reb Meir who expressed opinion on a collection that was made for Purim. Mageves Purim. If someone made a collection of Purim, as Rashi's Mois Shagoivin Akaboyin Vibnei Yair L'Chalik La'Niyim L'Sudas Purim L'Purim Kulo Yitnua La'Niyim De Purim. That's all you're allowed to do with it. No matter how much extra you have, it was earmarked funds that was collected specifically for Aniyim to have a beautiful Suda on Purim. That's what it goes. Mageves Ha'ir Lois Ha'ir. If there was a collection done by Gaboyim to support Aniyim in this city, then that's not allowed to be deviated either. It has to go straight to the city. And therefore, be'ein medaktik bedovar. And therefore, you're not medaktik, which Rashi says, don't say they have enough already for the Purim Suda, and let's put away the extra for general revenues of general tzedakahs. No, give him more, give him a fancier suda. If it's earmarked to the Purim suda, then that's the only thing that's allowed to be spent for. Even though you feel you're giving them enough, give him more and more. Avaloichin es hagolim, but what you are allowed to do is lekavet Purim. You could buy animals, v'sheichten, v'oichel. You could check an abundance of animals. You'll have an abundance of meat. Give it out to whoever needs, and if there's extra that no one takes, and the extra that nobody wanted to take, you could sell, and the money of that will fall into general revenues because you did earmark it all for Purim. You cut it, you shechted it, and you were going to give it out for Purim. If nobody ate it, you don't let it rot, you sell it. And that money you could now repurpose to the general tzedakah revenue. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Mageves Purim lePurim. The collection of Purim goes to Purim. The Eina Ani Rishai Likach Mehen Ritzula Sandali. If an Ani wanted to use some of the money to buy himself a strap or a shoelace or anything that's not specific for Purim, you're not allowed to. Ella Imkain Hisna B'Maimed Anshe Yair. You have to make a Tanai B'Maimed Anshe Yair to be able to deviate.
That's the people when they give it.
If it's a Mageves Purim.
That was mine.
What?
It was mine.
I guess so. Divrei Rabbi Yaakov she'amar mishum Rab Meir. So here you see Rab Meir Shita that deviating a mashu from the intent of the person who gave the tzedakah is going to be gzela. So this is the Rab Meir. So too, if someone rents you an animal and tells you to take a bebika, you're not allowed to take a bahar. If you do, it makes you tagasim. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Michael. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is Michael. So Zok Gemara, maybe there it's not a raya either. Dil mahasam nami da daita de Purim hu di oivle. The people who donated the cash gave it with the specific intention that it should be for Purim. Adaita de midi achrina lo yoivle. But he didn't give it for something else. As Rashi says, Adaita midi lo yoivle. The chivan the lava daita da achi yoiv nimtza mois becheskas bailim chutz min ayotzim sudas Purim. So maybe over there, I'm only giving it for Sudas Purim. Meaning, here's a bulk of money. Whatever you need for the Sudas Purim, use, and the rest give back to me. I don't want you to put it into the general coffers. So this Reb Meir is no longer a Meir we can rely on because maybe the Reb Meir understood Mageves Purim is because the money remains in the possession of the donator, and whatever you don't use for Purim, I want back. Once again, you don't see that deviating from the Das Balabayis. Even a Mashu makes you a gospel. Elahar Reb Meir. We'll have another Reb Meir. The Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishum Reb Meir. Hanois in dinner la'ani. Let's say you give money to an ani and you tell him, I want you to buy yourself a new jacket. Lo yigach boy talis. He's not allowed to buy a talis. A talis probably was more like a shirt, right? I assume a chaluk is an outer garment, and a talis is an inner garment.
Talis is the wrap. They used to wear such a.
Okay.
A cloak the other way around.
A talis is a cloak, and a chaluk is a jacket. It's a shirt. Okay. So if I said I'll buy a shirt, you can't buy a jacket. Or talis, you can buy chaluk. Why? So once again, you see a Meir Shita that it's stealing if you deviate from the Das Balabayis. Zok Gemara, no. The Dilma, maybe there's a special reason there as well why you can't deviate. The Dilma Shani Asam, the Asila Michshadeh. People are going to be chayshid, the kind Gvir who is kind enough to give the chaluk, they'll be chayshidim. Why will they be chayshidim? The Amar Inchi, Amar Planya, Zavnin la Lavusha la Planya. Yankel said, I'm going to buy a new chaluk. I'm going to buy a new jacket for Planyani. And you find a week later, 2 weeks later, the Ani still doesn't have a new jacket. He has a new talis, but he doesn't have a new jacket. So people are going to think this guy's a lawyer. He tells everybody, I'm giving this fellow a new jacket, and he didn't deliver. That's why there's a special akbada why you have to buy what you were told to buy. Idami says, or I'll buy him a talis, and I didn't buy him. So, Frank Gemara, if that was the reason, so you want to say so you don't have a raya from this Reb Meir because maybe there's a special reason by this Reb Meir. Zok Gemara, that can't be the pshat because in Cain, listening mipnei achshat, my mipnei shemaver al daita shal balabayis. What does it say? What does it say in this brisa? Rabbi Shimon loves the temperature of mayor. You shouldn't deviate. If the reason is because people are going to be chosh at me for not fulfilling my promise, it should have said the pnei achshat. The fact that it says you see, the whole problem is that the Ani is not doing with the money what he was instructed to do with the money. Nikra Gazlan. He is called a Gazlan. I don't know how he passed it.
David stuff can do what he wants.
Wer sagt, dass es gang durch die Gabe zu durchgehen?
No, I think the Gabbard stuff. No, I never.
Dus wenn bei der Mageves Piram haben sie nicht mehr verzichtet.
What?
It's the behind him.
I mean, we don't usually have a Makiya's program. I never had such a thing where it's
The Emstik is mein Amul is gewesen Tag, but then the Gemara decided as one of the Amulim brought, so he said, I'm giving at Kim Shlachmun, so because get such a kind of by and that's the real reason for the
I remember I used to collect for Mir and Tash. Okay. Zok the Gemara weiter. Hasoicher is a chamor v'hivrika. Someone rented a chamor and it was hivrika. Frag the Gemara, my v'hivrika. What is the definition of hivrika? Hacha tergimu. Here they explained it. Nuraisa. It lost its eyesight. Rashi says on Nuraisa, mulya balaz hayotis b'shachar ayin. Something happens in the black part of the eye, the pupil. I don't know exactly what the condition is, but what does it say over here? I don't know. I'm not sure what this is. It's a speck in the eye. It causes that the animal cannot see properly. Rav Omar avaskis. How do I pronounce that? Avazekis. Okay, hateloi misliu ragleha. It doesn't mean a problem with the eye. It means its leg got the worms infested its leg, and I guess it can't walk so good anymore. Okay, hahu the amar lahu avazekis b'milsa the malka. Once somebody said emergency in the fabric of the king, there's avazekas, there's worms that are eating it up. I'm sorry, moths. So there's moths. So he created a big alarm. There's a big alarm because in the king's storehouses where he stores his begadim, there's moths there. That creates a panic. Now, if you scream fire in a crowded theater, that's not free speech. You get punished for that. So the question is this guy lying or is he saying the truth? So they wanted to probe him. Amala, they asked him, big emergency. B'mai, b'tlei kesef or b'tlei zah? In silver kalim or in gold kalim? And Rashi says that silver kalim refer to flax, which are susceptible to be eaten by moths. Tlei zav is referring to wool, which generally is not so susceptible to that. So what happened was Ika the Amri bitlay kesef Amar v'katlua ofarkert. It's the opposite. By Pishton, moths don't eat so much. By Tzemer they eat. So there are those who say that he said it's in the silver kalim, and they killed him because clearly that's a false alarm because moths normally don't attack silver kalim or clay Pishton. Ika the Amri bitlay dov Amar, or there are those who say that he said it was in the wool, which of course, and they let him live because it turned out that he wasn't lying. He was saying the truth, and he was sounding the alarm for an important thing. So I guess we're just trying to illustrate that avazekas is referring to worms or insects that eat up things. If the king commissioned the animal, then he could say meaning the soicher, it's too bad for the soicher, and he has the animal, and that's what happened to it. Well, it's not expropriate because you're going to get it back. I mean, we're going to see, so the Gemara discusses that right now. So it's not, the Gemara qualifies it. Amara, loy shanu ela ba'nagriya chazeres. The only time the Ungaria? Ingedisha. You only say that the owner can tell the soicher, too bad for you. That's if eventually they're going to give it back to him. And like I explained, Rashi explains the way they used to do it is they needed the chamor. They just see someone's chamor, and then he would have to walk along with them because they wouldn't keep it forever. When they found another guy with a chamor, they just transferred it over. So they didn't overburden each person; they just burdened you until they found the next victim. I'm sorry.
Beginning of the Second World War, Mamish, the Polish army, they took away everything.
But if it was seized by the king and like Duvi says, it was expropriated, meaning he's never getting it back, then already you can't say Reisha Halafanecha, Chayiv Lahamad Loi Chamor. Then the owner is going to have to find a replacement chamor to honor his rental contract. Ushmul Amar, Bein Nagri Chazeres, Bein Nagri Sheni Chazeres, Im Bederech Halicha Nitla, if the animal was headed and the anagria was heading in the same direction as the soicher was headed, still oimer lo reishal chalafanecha. The malav b'derech halichas nitla, but if it's going in a different direction, then chayiv lahamid loy chamor. Then he has to shtel to a chamor.
The haraish l'chulafanecha means that the owner says to the renter, hey,
Yes. So let's see Rashi. Im b'derech halichas nitla, sha'anagria ma'lichas l'derech sha'yizer roitza lahalech. Anyway, the Nagri is going in the same direction as the Soicher is going. Then why? Shekain derech Nagria. Noitel chamoy roishal zeh umahalech by leachareha. V'chol chamor shapageh by rishon noitel. They keep it until they find something else. So anyway, we're going in the same direction. I'm going to get it back of it. So each person just has to suffer along by schlepping his own packages until they find another chamor to transfer the nagid. Therefore, the bailim can tell the seicher, you at your own expense rent temporarily another chamor, and you'll keep your rental, your second rental, until you find another chamor for them to seize, and then you'll get my chamor back.
So yes, so if an airline can try to tell this to the passengers too. Listen, it's all your guys' fault. We got to go get another plane. You pay for it. Isn't that the same thing? Is a passenger the same as a package?
I'm not sure because when we're talking about a rental car, you have to provide me a car, and it's considered like I provided you a car.
But
I'm not renting an airplane.
On the way to New York, the car ends up in Buffalo. He says, "Go to Buffalo and get it."
Yeah, okay. But Akiva is comparing to an airline is different. An airline, I'm not renting a plane. I'm buying a service, and you're not providing that service at all. Here, I'm renting a chamor. When you're renting a chamor,
the service it malfunctioned. I'm sorry, but it malfunctioned.
No, it didn't malfunction.
The airplane malfunctioned.
Didn't malfunction. Your muzzle is that the kingdom seized your chamor. That's not necessarily a peril that the owner should be mechuyev for. The renter is just as susceptible, right? Maybe it's mazal chagor. They took away your chamor. If I would have been there with it, they would have taken it away. So it's lav davka something. The Gemara is saying the Mishnah is saying this is not something that the owner will be liable for, because he can say the same way I'm suffering, you're suffering too, and that's just the way it goes. Just the way it goes. You know, it's like if I rent a car and the Burlington-based Skyway is closed, and because they have to go around, that's not the rental company's fault. You know, that's the way it goes. Ushmuel Amar, Bein Nagri Chazeres, Bein Nagri Chazeres, Imeder Chalicha Nitla, Oimela Reisha Chalafnecha, the Imlav, Beder Chalichasa Nitla, Chayiv Lamed Lo Yichamor. Okay. Imlav Beder Chalichasa Nitla, Chayiv Lamed Lo Yichamor. Most effective one. Hasoicher es a chamor v'evrika. Someone rented a chamor and it was evrika. And evrika, we have two pshatim in it, right? Either it lost its eyesight or it has a wormy leg. Oisha nishtatza, or it became a shoita. Now those animals, by the way, are still usable. Usable, it's just that it's going to be a little bit harder to control these animals. Okay. Mesa oisha nasis anagria. What if it died or it became an agria? Chayiv lahamad loy chamor. So this brisa is a stira to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that a nagria, you say a reishal chalafanecha. This brisa says a nagri is like dying. Chayiv lamed loy chamor. Zok the Gemara, b'shleim al Rav. B'shleim according to Rav, who makes the distinction between a nagri chazeres and the nagri sheina chazeres, loy kasha. Kanda nagri chazeres. Our Mishnah says that the owner could say a reishal chalafanecha is by nagri chazeres, and kanda nagri sheina chazeres. And the price that it says that the owner has to sell to another animal is a nagri sheina chazeres. Ela l'Shmuel, according to Shmuel, who mimanav shech, he could say a reishal chalafanecha. Kasha, we're going to have a steer between the Mishnah and the Bryce. And if you want to have for the steer, even according to Shmuel, and you'll say, the Mishnah that says Areshal Chalafanecha is speaking where the Anagri is headed in the same direction as you're headed, and the Mishnah, the Bryce that says it's like Mesa, and the owner has to tell to another one is speaking where the Anagri is going in a different direction. If you want to say that's pshat, it says in the Sefer of this price, Rab Shimon Lazar Aimer, im b'derech halichasa nitla, if it was b'derech halichasa, Aimer loy areishal chalafanecha, v'im lav chayiv lahamed loy chamor. Now the problem is, if that's the Sefer, michalal to the Tanakama, it must be that according to the Tanakama who said it's like Mesa, loy shiny lay. There is no distinction between which direction they're headed, because that's an option that only Rab Shimon ben Elazar introduced, but it didn't exist in the Reisha. So how could you make that distinction? Omer lach Shmuel. So Shmuel says, so then it's beautiful. Lav mi ika Rab Shimon ben Elazar the koi kavasi. So it's not a problem. Our Mishnah will hold like Rab Shimon ben Elazar. That stems with me, and there's taka machloekes tanoim. There's taka machloekes tanoim. We know in the Brayso there's a machloekes tanoim. You see Rab Shimon ben Elazar in the Tanakama. So our Mishnah, the way I'm learning, is like Rab Shimon ben Elazar. And the Tanakama Tagat argues, another Amrik Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Or you could say, Kula Rab Shimon ben Elazar. The whole Brisa is Rab Shimon ben Elazar talking. The Chisur Mechsera. But we need to do some editing. Hasoicher Shachamor Vivrika. Oy Nishtatis. There, Oy Malay Areshal Chalafanecha. Mesa Oysha Nasa Nagria. Chayiv Lahamid Loy Chamor. And then the Mishnah sticks in, before it introduces Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Bamed or Mamurim, Shaloi B'der Chalichasa Nitla. Avon Nitla B'der Chalichasa, Oymerloi Areshal Chalafanecha, Divi Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Shai Rab Shimon ben Elazar Oymer, in B'der Chilucha Nitla, Oymerloi Areshal Chalafanecha. Vimloi, Chayiv, Lahamid Loi, Chamor. Okay. I think we could stop here. Actually, we also go a little bit more just to the dot. How can you possibly say that the whole Brisa is going according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar? Vakatani Reisha, the Reisha of the same Brisa says, "Hasoiches achamor vivrika, oishin estatza, oimelai Reisha chalafanecha." The either Rab Shimon ben Elazar Amar, Rab Shimon ben Elazar holds, "Hasoiches achamor lirkoi velel." If you rented a chamor to ride, so we're quoting the new Rab Shimon ben Elazar, vivrika, oishin estatza. So you see clearly Rab Shimon ben Elazar disagrees with the Reisha of this very Brisa, because he holds if Rika and Nishtatza are considered bad enough that the Bailam do have to shtel to another Chamor, and you cannot say Reisha Chalafnecha. Amar Rabba bar Huna Lirka v'la Shiny. It's much different. If you're leading an animal that's carrying your packages and it has one of these conditions, yes, it makes it more difficult to use, but it's doable. But if you're riding it, then with these conditions, it could be fatal. As Rashi says, Lirkov shiny, Shemetipo Tachtov Begesher, on a bridge, the animal might just collapse underneath you. Or it'll drop you into a hole somewhere, into a gorge somewhere. It's much more dangerous to ride such an animal than it is to use it to carry packages. So if the purpose of the rental was to ride it, then these conditions are actually enough to say that the buy them have to shtel to another animal. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. I think kleis means if I'm transporting kleis chuchis, which also needs a very stable ride, is just like rachav ala adami, because once again, if it stumbles, it's going to break the glasses. Okay, we'll stop here, Beshem, and it'll be mamshich tomorrow. Yeah.